So, should you finance or lease an excavator? It really depends. And before I say anything, I want to make super clear, you shouldn't take advice from me about anything to do with your taxes. That only can come from your accountant. But there are different programs in the marketplace, some of which are a lease and some of which are what's called an equipment finance agreement. And the difference between the two is with a lease, you don't own the equipment at the end unless you pay a residual, whereas with when you finance an excavator or do an equipment finance agreement, you own the excavator after you've made your last payment. And the difference for many companies comes down to taxes, but you have to be really careful because when you do it for taxes, you have to do what's called a true lease. Now, here's the deal. A true lease means that at the end of the term, in order to keep the excavator, you're going to have to pay fair market value. And excavators just don't depreciate very much. Many of our customers look for a lease in order to save on taxes, but don't cut your nose to spite your face. Since excavators hold their value, that residual in the end is going to be big. And most of the time, you are going to be better off with financing for any sort of heavy vehicles or equipment. One of the most important questions, will your business actually qualify to finance an excavator? And it depends. Like everything, if you've been in a business a while and you've got decent credit, most of the time there's not going to be any issue. In fact, a lot of times we're not even going to look at your bank statements. If the excavator is more than $250,000, you can expect that we're going to need to look at your bank statements. And if it really costs a lot, maybe we're going to need some more documentation. But the vast majority of the time, all we're going to look at is your credit. Now, if you're a startup business, it is a lot harder. However, that doesn't mean it's impossible. There's just going to be more questions asked because startup businesses obviously fail at a much higher rate than established businesses. The next question we get a lot, how much down payment do I need to finance an excavator? And like a lot of things in finance, it depends. Sometimes it's zero. Well, zero plus some documentation fees. Those documentation fees range from about $500 to $1,000. But that's not always the case. In fact, it's usually not the case. Most of the time, you need to come up with at least one or two payments, so 2 to 5%. But if your credit isn't so good, a lot of times you can expect to come up with more, sometimes 10 to 20% or more in very challenging situations. So like everything, your down payment's going to depend, but if you've been in business a while and you've got decent credit, you can expect the down payment to be very low. If you've got lousy credit, you can expect it's going to be a little bit higher. Okay, now let's talk about the rates to finance an excavator. And here in 2022, rates are moving all over the place. So what I say in this video may change by the time you're looking at it. And here's the deal. I'm not going to reshoot every video on the website every time the Fed goes around and messes with the rates. However, there's a calculator just below that will give you a pretty good idea of what sort of rates or what sort of payments you're likely to see. And there's also a link to another article that really explains in depth how we figure out what your rate is going to be. The most important thing is you just entering a couple of things into a calculator and us spitting something out isn't going to give you a perfect answer. And in fact, sometimes there's something that you don't know about or we don't know about that makes the rate much higher or much lower than what we expect. So the only way to figure out what your real payment is going to be is to get an actual approval. And to do that, you got to talk to a human. So there's a form below that you can fill out, or you can give us a call at 866-631-9996, and we'll give you a pretty good estimate of what you can expect to pay.